Welcome back, this is Tucker. Let's talk weather. I've got good news for some, bad news for others. The new pattern taking control as we end the month of August. And speaking of patterns, it's another week with flood potential, where the threat will be greatest. And last but certainly not least, a look at the tropics and the next round of potential storms. What's up, guys? Good to see you back again, and welcome in if you're new. As always, let me know where you're watching from. Just love to see the crowd we get on here. And if you have any personal forecast requests, I got those for you here too. We start with a quick view of the U.S. and there are a couple big players here. First of all, we got a low pressure system out here bringing a big change that will last in the east. And out in the west, I mean, you can see it. A lot of activity along the west coast and the mountains. All of this will have implications as we wrap up summer and begin fall. So let's waste no time and jump into it. Let's start with a look at the big picture here. And it can be tough to forecast exact temperatures more than a week in advance, but you can get a great idea for what those temperatures are generally going to be like. And I'm going to help you understand that right now. So we start with a look at the air masses out here. That blue coloration, of course, that means a colder air mass. The orange coloration, that's your warmer air mass. And right now, at this exact moment here, as we get into a new week, we have a cooler air mass in place across much of the eastern U.S. and warmer air that is across the northwestern United States, and it's still pretty warm across the west coast and those mountains as well. Now I'm going to move this forward through the end of August here. I'm going to stop it right when we get to August 30th, and here's where we're at. This cooler air mass, which right now is being introduced to the eastern U.S., and you actually saw that when we were looking at our satellite, that's here to stay. So it's already been feeling like fall across the East Coast, and we have this cooler air mass to really reinforce that. So if you're not just on the East Coast, but really across the eastern half of the country, you may be done with true summer-like heat for the rest of the year. And there still could be a hot day here and there, but as a whole, I just don't see much more. And that hurts me as a summer weather lover. Now, looking farther west, you do have this warmer air mass mainly displaced in Canada. But as we begin to look ahead at the beginning of September, you're going to see that warmer air mass expand. And it really produces a strong signal that summer-like air is going to be present across most of the western U.S., especially the Rocky Mountains region, into the beginning of September. And it will feel like across the western U.S. that summer simply has not ended. And by summer, we're talking June, July, August. So real heat is going to stick around. While you are seeing this cooler air mass back off a bit into Canada, out in the East Coast, by the way, I do expect it is going to stay on the colder side relative to average in the eastern U.S., but I will also add, and you'll see this as we move it into the beginning of the middle of September. At this point, warmer air I do expect will return to the northeastern U.S., only I still don't expect the summer-like heat, because at this point, we'll be a couple weeks removed from the summer, and that's where the earliest fall conditions are going to set in. Now, there is one catch to this, and it's a little bit unusual. Typically, when you have colder air, you got more rain, actually. But here, as we wrap up the month of August, you can see it's very likely to be rainier than average across the western and central U.S. and drier than average across the eastern U.S. And as I move this into September, you can see that trend. It really sticks around. Drier in the eastern United States and wetter out here more in the west. What that means is great weather on the East Coast, but we have some dangers in the weather farther west. We talked about flooding in the intro. Let's talk about what you need to look out for right now. Quick note, guys, I'm a meteorologist. I could hype up these videos to get more clicks and views and stuff, but I'm simply not going to do that. So if you want a no BS forecast, consider subscribing here. Now, we've talked a ton about flooding this year. It's been a really devastating piece of our weather. And while I'm not calling for any historic floods here, flooding is still a threat. So let's get into what you should be watching. And to give you an overview here, we're looking especially off the bat here at Tuesday, the 26th, Wednesday the 27th, and Thursday the 28th. And as I move this forward, you're likely seeing some trends. The first off is across the Rocky Mountains, the entire region here. Every afternoon you're seeing those greens and yellows and oranges pop up. When you have a hot air mass over the mountains actually work as high-level heat sources to generate more storms. And for that reason, the flash flood potential is going to be low, but certainly there basically most of this week, into the beginning of September. And that's something that we'll be watching especially closely. But I'll also mention, and you may have seen this too, we have systems that are coming off the Rocky Mountains region, and they're drifting through the central U.S. and into the south central, even southeastern U.S. A couple of those systems are going to produce a lot of rain too. The east, while there will be a couple fronts that come through like you're seeing out here, the northeast and the west coast, again, could be a couple fronts that come in. nothing significant in terms of rainfall looking ahead at this week. It's really the mountains, the central U.S., and even into the southeast. And as I move this into the upcoming weekend, once again, you're seeing this trend sort of continue where you get your rain that pops up in the mountains in the afternoons, and you get a couple systems that slide through and end up making their way into the southeastern U.S. Now we can take a look at the amount of rain expected throughout the week here too, which I'm going to show you right now. And what you can see as I move this through the entire week is basically the areas most likely to see the heaviest and most substantial amounts of rain. And of course, across the mountains, we're looking at what will be a widespread 1 to 3 inches of rainfall, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in those drier climates can really add up fast. It doesn't get absorbed by the ground as easily. And here's our corridor of highest flooding potential across the southeastern and central U.S. here. That is what we're going to need to watch in terms of flood potential this week. Those areas, we're talking about the possibility of 3 to 6 plus inches of rain in some spots. Now, just to reinforce what we were talking about, here's your excessive rainfall outlook from the Weather Prediction Center. And you can see these level 2 risks out of 4 popping up in the mountains. Of course, that's where we're going to see the heaviest rain. That's where you really need to watch out for that flood potential. And right here in this corridor, again, you're going to see that flood potential present here, not just on Tuesday or Wednesday or even Thursday, but into Friday as well. And I believe we're going to see this upgraded out here in the southeastern U.S. too, where the heaviest rain is most likely to be. But to show you that one more time, again, you got your Rocky Mountains in play here. That's a slight flash flooding risk, and it really expands into the central U.S. here on Wednesday and Thursday, moving towards the southeast. Friday, once again, something we need to pay close attention to and take as a serious threat. Now on to the tropics, which of course have been active recently. We still have Tropical Storm Ferdinand, which is moving out into the Atlantic. And otherwise, it's pretty quiet. But this is just looking over the next 7 days. So let's take a look at what's ahead even beyond that. And what we're looking at here is, once again, our ensemble guidance. This gives us a range of outcomes. It's a more responsible way to forecast when you're looking at long distances in the future. Now, what we're seeing here, these blue numbers indicating high pressure systems. Our storms like to stay away from those. Red numbers indicating storms, and that's Ferdinand right there, which you'll see moving out into the Atlantic. But what we're going to be paying attention to is any development out here in the main development region, and that's where our U.S. threats generally come from. So as I move this forward through the week, you may remember too, we were talking about a storm near the Lesser Antilles that I thought may form and ride into the Gulf. The storm has died out, so we're okay there. We're kind of dodging the bullet. Again, here's our main development region. We got a high pressure system out here that's going to keep storms on a southerly track, preventing them from escaping into the Atlantic. And you'll see getting into the very end of August here, this is the 31st, and September 1st, we have our first wave entering the main development region. You can see that coming off of Africa. So I have a feeling sometime towards the end of August or beginning of September, right around that window where we transition months, that's where we're going to have our next thing to keep an eye on. Now, we are ways out, but you'll see as we go through basically the first week of September, our weather model still has some outcomes where this develops into a storm. We're looking at September 7th, though, and so it's a ways out. Nothing to worry about at this point, but certainly as we get into the second week of September, as this leaves the main development region, you can see some solutions bringing a storm here or here. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of talk about where this is going, but we really don't have any idea right now, just to be honest with you guys. What I can tell you is that I believe a huge chunk of the Atlantic could be in play because, again, we don't really know much. And that would likely be in the second week of September. So until the second week of September, there really isn't a lot to worry about. But I'll mention again, you can see some solutions showing storms developing, and that is something that we'll watch. And of course, I will give you, again, the no hype forecast so you get what you need to know. And there's a lot of people that hype these storms up out there. You just got to be careful. There's a lot of bad information on the internet. So if you have any questions, check here first. You'll get the real story. Now, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'll let you go here. But again, consider subscribing. Hope you guys stay safe, especially if you're in an area where there will be flooding. And if you like this fall weather, let me know in the comments. If you like the summer like me, let me know as well. And we'll be sure to keep you covered with undoubtedly more active days ahead. Be sure to check back here, and I'll see you next time.